This was a great weekend for you. Vish hit me up yesterday and said, dude, I'm retiring. I was like, what do you mean you're retiring? He's like, dude, I can't top this, man. I called it. So, hey, you really did. You've been on this train since way before anyone knew who Vish is. So let's say, how are your thoughts now that this is like becoming a reality? Stafford available.
I mean, there's this excitement, right? Like when you put yourself out there, and that's what like I've had to do, right? Because now no longer I can have opinions with my friends and then backtrack them 6 months later. Because now that I go on with the Grant Cohn, there's receipts to this business. So it's kind of and it's like right, and it's like you're gonna be wrong. And if you take chances and give takes and take opinions on something, you're more likely to be wrong than you are to be right. And this is the situation that I feel like I've been saying it for 6 months. Half the time, I just really liked Matthew Stafford. I saw the money made sense, and I said he's going to have to want to get out of Detroit some point. But I was just throwing it out there. Like half the time I was thinking, well, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. And now it's actually happening. I think the Niners have to do every single chance that they have to take every single chance and really look through this possibility, because to me, this is the best case scenario for the Niners. Like Deshaun Watson still feels like something that's so far away, and it's because there's so much that still has to happen with Deshaun Watson, and then there's more that needs to happen with what's Deshaun's price going to be and how expensive it's going to be, because we've never seen anything like Deshaun Watson get moved at that point in his career. With Matthew Stafford, there's a slight bit more precedent with guys like Carson Palmer and stuff like that. And the one thing we can agree on with Matthew Stafford is that I think the Detroit Lions are going to do right by Matthew Stafford, in the sense that they're not going to, if Matthew Stafford has a preference of 2 or 3 landing spots with similar offers, they're not going to say, well, no, Matthew, just because you want to go there, we're not going to do that, and we're going to take the better offer. I think they're going to do right by him because he's been the good soldier for their organization. He's been class personified. He's stood by them. He's never complained. He's never had a bad thing to say about all those bad head coaches they got in. He never said anything bad when they fired Jim Caldwell for going 9-7, when that was really hit the peak of his career in Detroit post Calvin Johnson. He's been the good soldier. And for that reason, I think that this is the guy you got to get. And the Niners, to me, like, I don't want to come in here 2 months from now knowing that the Indianapolis Colts got Matthew Stafford or the Washington football team got Matthew Stafford and hear John Lynch say, well, here's the thing. We really made the offer that was quite close. Things didn't go right, and then we decided that it wasn't for us, blah, blah, blah. But we're very convinced that Jimmy's the guy. Or we're very convinced X is the guy. This is the guy. Go get him.
Okay. So I bring Vish on the show to be the expert. I don't argue with Vish. I've been asking Vish, but what I do is I like to ask Vish questions because we don't always agree. But I like to just basically make Vish think through his positions to the end. It's like, Vish, if you think this is the right thing to do, let me ask you 8 questions and make sure you're convinced. Because sometimes if someone asks you questions, you might be like, I hadn't thought of that. I hadn't thought of that. So the thing about Stafford, I do agree that he's a better value than Watson. I mean, there's no question about it. Watson is almost team crippling going after him. But the thing about the NFC landscape right now is what I'm looking at is a Buccaneers team that's excellent. And Tom Brady, that you could say he's old, whatever, doesn't look like he's fading. It really doesn't. People said he was last year. He basically still looks like Tom Brady. So I think that's a team the Niners have to really take seriously as not just a one-year wonder, but a team they got to go through. So there's Brady in Tampa. And then to me, there's whatever's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers. We can talk about him later. So my question to you is, while undoubtedly Matthew Stafford would be a big step up from Jimmy Garoppolo, there's no question about it. There is no question about it. Is it enough?
Yeah, it absolutely is. Look, Matthew Stafford is one of the few quarterbacks that you can say has the physical capabilities to go head-to-head with Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady. He has every single tool that he needs to do that. Then it comes down to, well, do the 49ers have the coach to totally maximize those tools? Absolutely they do. they're supposed to have it. I believe they have it. So I think Kyle Shanahan should be able to maximize those tools of Matthew Stafford. And then the other thing,
real quick, haven't you said that he's not a tier 1 quarterback? And haven't you said that while he could win an MVP on the 49ers, you're not necessarily certain he could win a Super Bowl?
I don't think Brady's a tier 1 quarterback right now.
Okay.
So
okay. What about is Watson?
Yeah.
You don't think Brady's a tier 1 quarterback right now?
No, I don't.
Oh,
I think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were basically 500 with a guy that people didn't even have as a top 30 quarterback in Jameis Winston last year. You get him a top 12, top 10 quarterback in Brady. Like, of course, like, come on. This is like the Jimmy Garoppolo conversation, right? Like, wow, the Niners were terrible with Mullins and Beathard. Look at them with Garoppolo. So that means
11 quarterbacks you take over Brady right now? 11?
Yeah, absolutely. Not 11, maybe like 8 or 7 or 8. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. So what was the question I was asking you?
You were asking me something about Matthew Stafford and whether
is it enough?
Yeah, it is. It is.
So? Okay.
Yes, because they can run the football. That's one thing. 2, if you run the football, like, you're going to minimize the amount of times that he totally believes in his arm and makes throws that, like, maybe he shouldn't make and are ill-advised. And part of the reason I would argue that he's had to make them in his time in Detroit is because if he doesn't make them and he doesn't hit like 60, 70% of those insane throws, they're not going to win because they can't win with their defense. They can't win with their running game. They can't win with their coaching. What can they win with? They can't win with just raw talent. So, and I think if he comes to San Francisco, you're going to give him organizational structure, something he's never had, a coach with a real scheme and everything, something only Jim Caldwell really had for him. And he had a little bit of success with Darrell Bevell. And I don't think anybody here has a very high opinion of Darrell Bevell. He's going to have a very good defense. I think even with DeMeco Ryans, to me, as long as Fred Warner and Jimmy Ward are healthy, this is going to be a good defense. And if Nick Bosa plays, it's going to be a top 6, top 5 defense. So
I got more questions for you.
All right.
Let's say the Niners get Stafford. Let's say they get Stafford.
Yep.
And Brady stays in Tampa, obviously. And Rodgers, let's say he either stays in Green Bay, which is starting to look unlikely. We're going to talk to, or let's say he goes to the Rams. Okay. So he goes to the Rams. He lives in LA. I'm sure they'd love to find a way to get him down there.
You're talking about Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers. Let's say Rodgers goes to the Rams. Brady stays in Tampa. The Niners get Stafford. Honestly, not the Niner fan in you, not the Stafford fan in you. Honestly, and maybe I'm just saying, project how the NFC shakes out in 2021.
I think they would 100% be in the conversation. I mean, the New Orleans Saints with Drew Brees.
They're in the conversation, yeah. But I mean, just saying, like, project 1, 2, 3. How do they finish? You know,
who's the best team? Rams would be 1, which would automatically knock the 49ers to like 5 because they would have to play in the wild card. But I think that 49ers, if you're ranking just individual teams, it would be
power rankings in the NFC with those teams.
If you're ranking them, it would be Rams 1, 49ers 2, Bucks 3. And I think the Bucks are going to lose Chris Godwin. I think Rob Gronkowski is going to retire if they win the Super Bowl this year. I don't know if they'll bring back Antonio Brown. I think there's a few pieces with the Bucks that people are underrating that might go.
That's fair. Okay. So they're in the conversation, but you do agree that the Rams would be number 1. So we can talk about Rodgers because it's but we're not there yet. I don't know what that noise was. Let's stick with Stafford. I have more questions.
Wait. Actually, you know what? There's something I totally missed. If the Rams get Matthew Stafford, get Aaron Rodgers, that means somebody really, really, really good is gone. That means an Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, somebody like
one
that.
One of the two, because they don't have picks. They don't have picks.
Right, one of those guys is gone, which means that's going to leave their defense a lot more vulnerable because. You know how, like, people are like, look at Leonard Floyd. He's not a bust. Look, yeah, the guy next to him takes triple teams. Like, whoa. Yeah, he's a really athletic player who's pretty good. You thought he was a bust because, like, you didn't know that he was better than he actually was showing. And now he's being able to capitalize on that because he's playing next to Aaron Donald. It's like Darius Williams is playing really good football.
Hold on. Let's not get off track. Hold on. I got more questions for you. All
right, ask away.
Okay, so, all right. So what's it going to take, in your opinion? So, like, obviously, the starting point is the 12th pick, right? We agree. The starting point is the 12th pick, and you hope that that's enough. And it might be enough unless a team like Indianapolis offers multiple picks, a first this year and a first next year. And even though they're picking in the 20s, that'll probably trump your offer. Or if a team that probably shouldn't be trading for him decides that they want to trade for him, like Denver. That really isn't ready for Stafford, but what are you going to tell John Elway he wants him? So to me, the 12th is already a little rich. It could get richer. What do you think it'll take, and what do you think is the walk away point for the Niners? Where would it be for you? Where you're just like, that's just too much. I'm not going to do that.
I think anything above 2 firsts would be too much for me. But if you're saying it's a first, a third, and maybe a fourth next year, or a first and a third, or a 1 and a 2, I'd 100% do it, just because the Niners already have a ton of picks in the back half of this draft. And for them right now, their roster for 2021, besides 1 or 2 pieces, is kind of set in stone with their core, right? They're going to have Fred Warner, George Kittle, Ayuk, Debo, Jimmy Ward, those type guys set in stone. And now it's just between 1 or 2, between Verrett, Trent Williams, and those guys. 2022 is where we run into problems where a lot of different pieces that aren't the core are going to start moving out, and that's where the Niners have to totally retool that roster. So if you're saying they have to go 1-1 and plus a second this year and a second next year, then 100% no, because the Niners wouldn't have picks this year and they wouldn't have picks next year. But if you're telling me it's just this year's picks and they can keep next year's draft for the most part intact, then yeah, I'm 100% here to do a first, a third, and a fourth next year for Matthew Stafford.
It doesn't bother more questions. It doesn't bother you that you're trading the 12th pick this year, and it makes it tough to either get an offensive lineman who can protect him or get a quarterback who can groom. You can groom for when he leaves. No, it doesn't bother you. If you think he'll fix the offensive line problem or the offensive line problem, I mean, he'll fix it enough. It'll be mediocre.
Enough. They got to do better coaching it together. They got to have continuity where all 5 guys start. They're going to need a better center. I'm hoping maybe Kyle's able to do what McVay did with getting John Sullivan. If you remember, John Sullivan, Andrew Whitworth absolutely changed Jared Goff's career and really helped McVay out that first year because their offensive line was phenomenal. I'm hoping they can do the same thing with Alex Mack. I think this offensive line also, Matthew Stafford's ability to move within the pocket is going to really, really help the offensive line as a whole. I'm hoping for continuity. Maybe Mike McGlinchey puts on a couple, maybe 10 to 15 pounds. I know you're not convinced there, but Mike, visit In-N-Out Burger every single day this offseason, whatever you want. But jokes aside, I do think that he'll help the offensive line problem, and I do think that Kyle is going to be with him and the ability that he has, because the other thing that we don't talk about with the Niners offense is the lack of Armstead at quarterback basically makes defenses play closer to them in the box. And that means you got more bodies for an inexperienced center to make line calls. You got more bodies where defenses are going to be hyper aggressive against them. And when you get an arm like Matthew Stafford, a guy where if you're going to play press and you're going to play a single safety, well, okay, Brandon Ayuk, just run a straight go ball because we know you can beat your corner, and Matthew Stafford's going to hit you for a 40-yard gain. That moves everybody back. That makes defenses play safer. That arm is going to change a couple things for the 49ers that way. And then I just think that with offensive line play in the NFL, I think that most Niners fans are so caught up in only watching their team, as any NFL fan does. They don't see that line play across the NFL is pretty pathetic. Like, the New Orleans Saints are supposed to have the best line in football. They're supposed to have 3 All-Pros, and the 49ers offensive line defensive line without Nick Bosa, without Dee Ford, without DeForest Buckner, 3 of their 3 best players on defensive line from last year whipped the New Orleans Saints offensive line this year. So offensive line play across the NFL is terrible. Yesterday, Patrick Mahomes' offensive line, do you know how bad it is? They're playing without their right guard. They're playing without their left guard. They're playing without their all-pro right tackle, Mitch Schwartz. They're probably going to play without Eric Fisher in the Super Bowl, and I guarantee you it's not going to change their offense because Mahomes is one of one. So let's take him aside. But offensive line play in the NFL is just bad. I don't think the Niners, even if they draft the guy, it's going to be a great offensive line.
Real quick. It is bad in the NFL, all right? But there's degrees of bad. The Niners gave up 78 quarterback hits this season, all right? The Ravens gave up 22. The Packers gave up 26. The Raiders gave up 29. The Browns gave up 29. The Colts gave up 33. The Dolphins gave up 37. The Jaguars gave up yeah, it's bad, but 78, dude. I'm just saying, there's a possibility that you do move heaven and earth to bring in Matt Stafford, and it's the right move. And the dude just gets hurt behind a bad offensive line because McGlinchey misses once at the wrong time.
Grant, I'm going to take one of your points right here and throw it back at you. What's the one thing that you've said consistently with Jimmy Garoppolo? He's unable to do what when he's on the field?
Protect himself.
And why is that? It's not just the athleticism. He can't protect himself upstairs fast enough.
True.
The teams you named,
True.
Cleveland aside, best offensive line in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers, standpoint, internal clock, protects himself, gets through his progressions, very quickly gets the ball out. Phillip Rivers, one of the smartest quarterbacks in NFL history, gets through his progressions very quickly, gets the ball out. Throws probably the best crossing route I've ever seen in the mesh concept. Like, I don't know how he throws that ball so well. That aside, but the other teams you named, for the most part, I think if you bring in a guy that's smart, understanding, moves a little better, like, okay, they're not going to be 30, but I think that'll be 40 instead of 78.
Okay. Final question, and then we got to move on from Stafford and get to a new topic. But the final question is, and I've been throwing this out to all my guests. I did it to Botan today. I think he was a little annoyed at me. But no, it's, to me, this is the Niners. I don't know if it's their ace, but it's something that it's their alternative. If the picks start getting expensive, and again, what did you say you thought it was going to end up costing the Niners, a first and a third? That's what you think it's going to cost them?
First, third, or first and second?
Let's say it gets to first and a second. Let's say it somehow gets to a first and a first because there's some team out there like the Seahawks that just overpays. You know what I'm saying? And you don't want to give up 2 firsts, but you have this option to trade a player who's worth a whole lot because he's very good.
Are you going to say Nick Bosa? Because I am
going to say Nick Bosa.
No, I'm going to say no.
You'd rather trade 2 first-round picks than trade Nick Bosa.
Look. The thing is, this organization, here's the thing. I'm not even going to say from my perspective because I'm biased here because I'm a Nick Bosa fan, 49ers fan. I got
a big Nick Bosa jersey. You have no idea. I love Nick Bosa.
Fair enough, but I haven't thought about this enough for me to be completely objective because this is something we're talking about off the cuff. So I'll talk from the
49ers. Marinate on it.
Yeah, I'll talk from the 49ers and John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan's perspective, okay? They've had 4, 5 first-round picks in their regime. Kinlaw, Ayuk, we think they're really good, or we think Ayuk is really good and Kinlaw is going to be good, but we cannot comment yet, right? McGlinchey, so-so. Solomon Thomas, big bust. Nick Bosa is the one guy that they drafted in his first year, looked like a superstar from day one. It just sets bad precedent if you draft a guy like this. The NFL is very emotional. The locker rooms, people are very particular on these type of little things. They drafted this guy. If you trade him like that, I think it will resonate in an uneasy feeling, and it'll send a message where players are like, if that guy's not safe, then when am I getting?
Yeah, but you're sending it because you're getting a franchise quarterback in return. I think the players would understand the business of football. It's like it takes a lot to get a lot. You know, it's you're either trading your future or your recent past. One of the other.
I mean,
ultimately Stafford.
I mean, ultimately, even for a guy like Stafford, it would have to be to bring in Mahomes. I think that's what it would have to be for Nick Bosa, just because of how the organization would feel about him, how the organization feels about him, and all of those types of things.
Kittle always says that Bosa is the second best player in the league, and I think he means that Mahomes is the best, right? I mean, I don't even think Kittle would argue that. Maybe he means him, but I think most people would agree that it's Mahomes. So he says Bosa. So okay, so he's worth more than Stafford. All right, fair. Enough of Stafford. We